We are live at Studio B. This is your day-to-day BYU Sports play-by-play. I am Spencer Linton, once again teamed up with Jarom Jordan. Joining us now is the BYU Football radio analyst, former BYU Football standout, and an Arena Football League legend. Hans Olsen is with us on BYU Sports Nation. Hans, how are you this morning?
How are my two favorite guys? It's not about me. It's about you. How was your Memorial Day?
It was fantastic.
Awesome. Super chill.
Yeah. And a great day to remember those who really matter, right?
Absolutely. Those who are much more brave than the three of us could ever imagine, for sure.
No question. Hey, I will say this. You were a little brave to go on social media and take on your son one-on-one in a rep. Hans, it didn't work out so well for you. How would you assess your performance?
Well, I'm going to do the film breakdown later and try to figure out exactly what happened. So, guys, this is no joke. It took me an hour to find my Cotton Bowl jersey from that 1996 season. And I dug that out and shook the dust off it, tried to impress him and intimidate him, and then got my Colts helmet out and got the snaps all ready and pulled out my old cleats. I still have like 12 pair of cleats when I had my Nike contract when I was playing professional football, and got out some cleats and dusted those off. And I was stretching. Got me a nice new pair of BYU lineman gloves that I threw on, and I was feeling tight and I was looking good. And then the ball snapped, and he snapped me into the ground, and I think my back snapped, and a few other things snapped. And it was a quick Memorial Day one-on-one session that he dominated. It's fun though. Jarom and I were just talking about it. You want your kid to eventually be better than you. It's just, he just turned 17 and now he's better than me at everything at age 17. And that's tough. I mean, he's a pretty incredible kid.
And his hair smells like cinnamon. But yeah, that's awesome. Tommy looks like a good kid. Okay, BYU football. Transfer portals, you can still sign people. BYU's added a couple pieces here and there. Do you feel like BYU's added enough? Are they ready to go, or is there still like a spot or two where they might need to add a dude?
Well, the last time I think we talked, they hadn't added McKay Hillstead. And I think that's a significant add because McKay Hillstead is a competitor. He is a fighter. He is a winner. He's very much like Jake Retzlaff. Those two have a lot of similarities. They don't know how to lose. It just isn't in their DNA. Even though Retzlaff got a feel and a taste of it the back end of last season, these guys are winners. And I think that they're going to force a really healthy competition, and I think they're going to force each other to get better. So that's my hope. And I fully expect Jake Retzlaff to be the starting quarterback come the opener. Fully expect it. I go back to Jake Retzlaff and his JUCO years. That kid was 24-2. That kid threw for nearly 7,000 yards in just 2 seasons. Actually, it was over 7,000. I think it was closer to 8,000. He had 44 touchdowns his second year there with Riverside. Everything he did was about winning. And I just think that there's a lot of hope to be had in his work ethic and his delivery. But what we really needed to see was a healthy competition. And McKay is going to be that healthy competition. And I do expect that. Now, this is such far speculation, but that's what we do, right, guys?
Yeah.
I do expect McKay Hillstead to be starting sometime by game 7 or game 8. I think McKay is probably going to be your starting quarterback, unless Jake Retzlaff goes out there and owns it. I was thinking about my old quarterback, talking about that Cotton Bowl year. Steve Sarkisian came out of El Camino, and he had 1 year before I arrived. I arrived in 96. And in that year, he still threw for like 3,400 yards and was either all WAC or second team all WAC, and really set himself up for that Texas A&M game. That was my freshman year, where he threw for over 500 yards and kind of blew the doors off and set the level and expectation for the season. I'm hoping that Jake Retzlaff has a bit of that. Again, some similar characteristics. Jake Retzlaff, 6'1", Steve Sarkisian, 6'2". They both have solid mobility. I would say Jake Retzlaff probably has more mobility. I just hope that something clicks and Retzlaff finds whatever it is inside him that is so much competitor. And I hope that McKay Hillstead kind of unlocks that for him.
Hans Olsen is with us on BYU Sports Nation. Look, the projections, speaking of, and prognostications out of Vegas are not great for BYU football. Hence, they have the Cougars at 4.5 wins right now. So in your opinion, what would qualify as an overachievement for BYU this year, coming off a 5-7 season where they didn't go bowling?
An overachievement? An overachievement would be eight wins.
Okay.
I think a pretty rational level of expectation would be 6 wins. You know, this is much like a conversation that we had last year about this time, guys. Like 7 wins. Get 7 wins, and I think that it keeps people away from the gates. I think it keeps the pitchforks out, and it keeps the torches away, and I think that fans are somewhat satisfied and happy. But I struggle a little bit with this 4.5, and I struggle a little bit setting a low expectation because it's not like you're playing Clemson, Ohio State, and Michigan in your non-conference. You're playing SIU, SMU, and Wyoming. Now, I know that SMU is a good team. They were really good last year, and
sure,
you got to play them on the road. And I know Wyoming is a decent team. You got to play them on the road. But, guys, it's not the Blue Bloods. It's not the big programs. These are 3 very beatable teams. My expectation is you start 3-0. That's my expectation. You're BYU. You're not going to go and lose to SMU. You don't go lose to Wyoming. And you definitely don't lose to Wyoming and Laramie. You don't do that, even though I did. So a little bit of a double standard. Miserable place to play. And a tough place to win. But I have a higher expectation. And then after that, you know, you get going in your conference schedule with Kansas State and Baylor, and you're off and running. And I really do see 4 wins in conference schedules. So, you know, I'm kind of putting that thing at like 6 and 7. I think anything below a bowl game, and guys, what do? You know, it's hard because these are great coaches and great men, but at some point you've got to start winning. You've got to get yourself to a bowl game, and you've got to start winning. And we've seen the expectation of BYU sports take a big jump with what we just saw with Kevin Young. And I do think that BYU coaching staff feels that, and they see that, and they know it. And remember, Jay Hill was not the Kevin Young level, but Jay Hill was a big get, and that was a really big investment for BYU athletics at the time to go get Jay out of Weber State. And the contract, and I'm sure the money and everything that came with it was a massive investment, and you got to start to see that pay off.
It's big time. It really is. And BYU's being competitive on and off the court and field, which is where you need to be in this era of NIL and whatnot. Okay, Dick Weiss, longtime and Hall of Fame writer, tweeted a couple of days ago about the possibility of Utah going to the ACC. What do you think about that potential speculation right there?
Well, I think that if it was possible, I would think Utah would probably do it. You know, there's a lot of speculation that the ACC is going to fall apart, but there is some collective bargaining that really unifies these guys. It's really hard to step out of that conference right now. But when you're talking about a conference that has multi-year national champion in recent history in Clemson, and you're talking about Florida State, who did such big things last year and have started to really ramp up their production, and then you throw in Miami and a few of these other ACC powerhouses, they do control a good chunk of money. You know, guys, the ACC gets more of the college football playoff percentage payout. The ACC gets more ESPN revenue. The ACC does have a more significant payout. But what they've got is unstable footing. So I would be really cautious leaving what I think is solid, it was great stability with the Big 12. I think you got to be cautious jumping ship. And if you did that, you'd burn a lot of bridges. You'd probably burn some bridges to the ground. You'd be chasing the dollar, and you'd be chasing some of the blue bloods, and you'd want to get into bigger and better competition and shoot for the stars, which I understand that, but it's so unstable, guys. You've seen the ACC and its instability. But then the other thought that I have is it really doesn't matter because we're 4 or 5 years away from a complete reorganization of college football anyways. So I think that the Big 12 is short-lived. I think that the current build of the ACC is short-lived. And with this House versus NCAA ruling, where universities can now pay out to $20 million and certain percentages, and they're trying to bump NIL. As we see the House versus NCAA clear and everybody voted in, I just think we're about to see a dramatic shift in college football specifically.
Hans Olsen is on BYU Sports Nation. You brought it up, the House versus NCAA settlement, which will retroactively pay players back through, I think, 2016, which is wild in and of itself. But Hans, moving forward, can we just officially say that amateurism is gone? It's done. It's over. Yeah. It's finished.
Yeah, it is. I think in what we've seen it as and what we've expected to be, I think it is largely gone. And I think it's been gone now for a couple of years, where we've seen this portal activity and we've seen the payouts and these collective builds and NILs, and it's gone. And I think that there are still parts of it in FCS football. I still think that JUCO still really encompasses it, and that's great. But when you're talking about the BYU worlds, the BYUs of the world, it has to be gone. You know, now you're gonna engage in the payouts and making sure that athletes get distribution. And now there's going to be a big Title IX fight, which is going to be really uncomfortable. And I don't know how that ends up coming down, but you know, they're going to look to distribute an unfair amount to football. And that's probably going to cause a lot of problems down the road, but it is gone as what we knew it. But I'm not overly upset about it, guys, because it's still going to be labeled football. You're still going to see the Y on the helmet. Coaches are still going to be expected to get in the portal and find their talent, build their teams, and win games. And we're still going to be out there cheering for them and calling the games. And it's still going to be extremely competitive. It's probably going to be more competitive than it was. It just doesn't have that old balance where, man, it was all for the love of the game. It's definitely gone.
Yeah. Well, Hans, I think the only way to finish this interview is to point out that while your son, Tommy Rock, is better at you than in football right now, yes, I still think you have the edge on him in social media, man. I think you still got the edge there.
Oh, man, I hate those social media battles. I have told him, this is the best part about being a dad. I have told him to delete no fewer than 10 tweets because they were just too hot. And they were out there for an hour, and I'd shoot him a text and be like, "Hey, dude, I don't like the sound of that, or I don't want to delete it." And I'm like, "Well, then I'm just gonna have to take your phone." I don't know what else to say. He's quicker witted. These kids nowadays they're quicker witted, man. Like their shots are a little bit more nasty. We used to have more fun with it, but these guys cut to the core now.
Hey, we wish you well moving forward with that, and hopefully you don't have to take his phone. Hans, great stuff as always. Your insight's awesome.
It's coming for the two of you, by the way.
I know.
Like, at some point, yep.
You're not far away where you're going to be asking your kid, like, how did you turn this on?
Oh, gosh.
What is what is this Tic-Tac Instacam or whatever these things are. It's coming.
Can't wait. And thanks for the time, man. Be well.